Andrew here, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be taking a look at one of my World of Nintendo cabinets. This one in particular houses mainly my Nintendo 64 collection with my boxed games up here at the top, some Famicom and Japanese Game Boy Advance in the middle, but then my loose N64 cart collection beneath that. And once you really get down to kind of the base of the cabinet, there's all sorts of strange stuff. You get Supervision, Game Wave, Tiger Electronics, mini arcade machines. So again, after we're done kind of looking at the stuff that you can see on camera right now, just like I did with my PlayStation display cabinet, I'll take that camera off and we'll get a nice close look at all the different sorts of things that are in here. But again, like I said, let's start at the top and work our way down. And the first thing that you see is my boxed N64 collection with about 35 boxes per row. And you have 3 full rows with a little bit of the 4th one here. And accounting for the fact that there are some doubles and such mixed in, I have about 100 different boxed N64 games. Now, the N64 in total in North America had 296 games, so that's actually a third of the entire collection right there. In terms of my loose collection, I actually have 281 games, so I'm only 15 games short of a full N64 set. But just overall, it is such a cool console to collect for, and it's very manageable, unlike the NES and Super NES, where you have about 700 North American releases each. N64 is definitely just something that's so much easier to dive into and go for that complete set. Unfortunately, right now though, just like so many things during this kind of crazy year, the price has gone up, because just so many people are stuck at home, people want something to do, people are, collecting video games more, and just a lot of prices have shot up. But hopefully, it's still not too hard to jump into. Just expect, a lot of the later games have kind of creeped up there into the multiple $100 range. With Sculptor's Cut, Clay Fighter, I actually do own it. It's the most expensive N64 game. That one is really jumping up there right now, so you might want to grab that one, and who knows, maybe a year from now you'll have doubled your money or something like that, because even since I got it, the price has just been constantly rising. So that's Andrew's investment advice for the day. Don't actually take it, and if it doesn't work out, don't sue. But aside from that, let's talk about the different boxed N64 games that I have up here. And I grew up with the N64. I just have such fond memories of playing so many great N64 games. And again, I just love having them in the box. So of course you have GoldenEye, 007, Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Tooie. Bomberman Hero, a very underrated N64 game, but absolutely one of my favorites. And again, one that I grew up with. Conker's Bad Fur Day, Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, F-Zero X, of course, Mario Kart, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, the 3 Mario Party games. I mean, Mario Party, it's amazing, the Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 was just phenomenal for multiplayer games. It was just so great. Of course, it was the first Nintendo console to have 4 controller ports right out of the box. There were things like the NES Satellite and such, which would allow you to have that compatibility, but N64 is just where I think, I've had almost more multiplayer fun than any other console. The GameCube is probably the only other one that would, be close to that, with all the hours of Melee and such I've played with friends. But other games too. Paper Mario started on the Nintendo 64, Pokemon Stadium, Mega Man 64. Now, Mega Man 64 is actually a really notable game in my N64 collection because it is sealed. And again, Mega Man 64, I grew up with this game, I absolutely loved it, and then I got Mega Man Legends 2, of course, because, this is like the 64 version of Mega Man Legends 1, and then I got Mega Man Legends 2, and it was just such a phenomenal set of games. It's such a shame we never got the 3rd one, but I really like having the first one sealed. And just your typical N64 box. You always kind of get the blue on top, green on the bottom, yellow on one side, and red on the other side, just like all the colors that you find in the N64 logo. Very interesting box designs, and I'll put this back in a second. But other notable games like, Ogre Battle I have complete in the box, Pokemon Stadium 2, Perfect Dark, Quest 64. N64 definitely did not have very many RPGs, and Quest 64, in terms of, what is an RPG, it's very different compared to other ones. I loved it though growing up. I had such a good time with Quest 64. I thought it was a lot of fun. Of course, you know, StarCraft 64, Star Fox 64, a lot of things on the 64 ended with 64, so you just end up saying 64 a lot when you're talking about all the games. Super Mario 64, Super Smash Brothers, surprisingly without a 64 on the end, I guess because it was the first one, and of course, you know, Yoshi's Story, and the Zelda games, and we have different versions of Zelda here too. We of course have the original release with the shiny kind of gold cover, and it says the collector's edition because this is the one that came with the gold cartridge, where later releases were of course just the gray cartridge. That's another gold one. But you of course later just got the one that looked like this, and that's the one that came with the gray cartridge with the gold label. I'm just going to kind of slide all of these back in here. So the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is actually Japanese Nintendo 64 games. Now it's really funny, there are actually some really cool Japanese exclusive games. Of course, a major one is Dobutsu no Mori, or Animal Forest, or the very first Animal Crossing game, originally, of course, originated on the N64. I've done a whole unboxing video of this and the Japanese GameCube version, but the GameCube version that we got was an upgraded version of this, ported to the GameCube, and then of course that was just kind of the first one they ever translated and brought over to North America, but that's a game that was never released in North America. And then of course I have some other ones too, like Donkey Kong 64. It's such a great game, how could I not own the Japanese version? Let's compare it though to a North American box. And you'll see that the size is a little bit different. It's interesting because Japanese N64 boxes are vertically oriented, where the North American ones are horizontal, and the Japanese box is actually just slightly bigger, which is such an anomaly because, as you can see down here with the Famicom boxes, they're like half the size of an NES box. Super Famicom boxes are also smaller than Super Nintendo game boxes, but for some reason they really went overboard with how big they made the Japanese N64 boxes, which I've always thought was pretty funny. But some other exclusives I have, like the Game of Life, Wonder Project J2, so there's definitely some interesting stuff that you'll find exclusive to the Japanese N64. Another thing I want to show, once I'm kind of just done putting all this back, thank you for your patience. I could cut this, but I appreciate the waiting, is that the cartridges are a little bit different as well. And this is why you can't just kind of by default play a Japanese game on your North American console, is because here we have North American Duke Nukem 64, and you'll see that there are these gaps in the bottom corners of the cartridge. Now if we look at Dobutsu no Mori, Animal Crossing for Japanese N64, you'll see that those tabs are in a completely different place, and that's because in the North American 64 there are kind of pieces sticking out that allow this to go in, but not this one. Well, in the Japanese N64, there are pieces that this will fit into, but not the North American one. So all you have to do to play games from a different region on a, an N64 of a different region is to kind of mess with those tabs inside the console. You could also take the game apart and just put the board in or put a different back on it, and that will work. There's also converters like this one, like this is Adapter Wonder, and it has spaces in the corners that are big enough to kind of accommodate for any console regardless of which region you put it in. So that's just kind of a really brief lesson in how to play games from other regions and kind of the region locking that existed between the North American and Japanese N64s. But aside from those tabs, there is no kind of software region locking. It's all physical. So either modifying your cartridge or the N64 or getting an adapter, you can play games from any region on either your N64 from North America or Japan. So that's just kind of a really big lowdown of that. Another thing that kind of exists in the middle here is that N64 accessories oftentimes came in boxes that looked a lot like game boxes. Like this right here is just kind of the RF adapter, but it also comes in a box that looks like one that a game could have belonged in, and you get other ones too, like the expansion pack and such. So those are all in there. And then moving down to this next row, again, we've already kind of talked about some Japanese stuff, but this was just a really great place for me to place my Famicom boxed games and Japanese Game Boy Advance games, because hilariously both of those box sizes are almost kind of the same. And notable in terms of Famicom boxed is Super Mario USA, of course, in Japan. I actually had a pickup video about a couple of years ago now when I picked up Doki Doki Panic for the Famicom Disk System. So that was what we eventually got, is Super Mario Bros. 2 with a whole bunch of modifications, of course, added in. So after they made Mario Bros. 2 for North America, they actually took our Mario 2 and then released it back in Japan as Super Mario Brothers USA, or rather not, there's not even a Brothers on it, just Super Mario USA, and this is essentially the same as Mario Brothers 2 in North America, just with the 2 changed to a USA, and there's some other games mixed in there as well. Lots of really cool stuff on the Famicom. Some interesting things on this side as well include a copy of, this is actually a friend brought this back for me from Japan before I ever had the opportunity to go there myself. Perhaps he's watching, and I've always kept it in this bag just because this was how he handed it to me, and I thought it was really cool. Super Potato is a chain of retro game stores in Japan, and they're always kind of seen as on the more expensive end, but typically, if you're looking for something, Super Potato is where you want to look because they just have such a massive selection. So, I mean, Super Potato is also just such a hilarious name. How could I not keep the bag? And I, of course, kept the bubble wrap for it, too. And that is Takeshi's Challenge, a very infamous game on the Famicom. Now, otherwise, in this stack here, another really interesting thing is actually Mario Adventure. Now, this is an NES ROM hack, but what's really cool, what I really like about this reproduction cartridge is that it dates back like over a decade now. So back in a time when NES reproduction cartridges were not actually all that common, someone actually had a reproduction cart of Mario's Adventure made up, and there's even like this custom tin for it. So as someone who definitely enjoys my ROM hacks, I think it's cool to kind of have, you know, a really old NES reproduction game there. Let's just place that down nicely. And the next thing we're going to look at before we pan the camera down and actually look at my loose NES, or rather N64 collection, is just some boxed Game Boy Advance stuff. And boxed Game Boy Advance is once again, you know, a different shape from its North American counterpart. Here we have Starfy, and again, it's very horizontal, where boxed original Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games in North America were all in like perfectly square boxes. So it's interesting to see that the Japanese ones are different. And then moving back in time even more, then you get to your Game Boy Color games, which are even different shape from the Japanese Game Boy Advance games. This right here, Pokemon Trading Card Game 2, one of my all-time favorite games. And then moving back even past that to original Game Boy Black and White, it's just like a very tiny box compared to the other ones. So I just think that rather Japanese Game Boy stuff is so fascinating because their boxes are so different, and again, there's just some really, really great exclusive stuff on the Japanese Game Boy. The Starfy series never came over here. I also have the Gyakuten Saiban or the Ace Attorney series on the Game Boy Advance, where it actually originated before it was ported to the Nintendo DS, and that was eventually what was translated and brought over to North America. And I mean, I love my Mega Man Battle Network or Rockman EXE, so I have some of the Japanese versions of that. But I'm going to put these back, and we're going to pan down and look at my loose N64 collection. Alright, so momentarily I will be taking the camera off of the tripod and again giving you that much closer look, which I think will help you understand a lot of what's going on here a bit better. But down here is my loose cart collection, and unfortunately, Nintendo 64, there is not really a great way to display them. They don't have end labels. The cartridge shape is just all around kind of awkward. So they're very hard to organize and display, I find. A lot of people will go to eBay or something and buy stickers that you can place on the top of each of the games to kind of give them an end label, but I don't personally do that. I'm not too interested in putting stickers on all of my games, so I kind of just organize them. Like everything, I put them in alphabetical order, but I have a kind of a weird system here where the way this works is that, again, they're all just kind of set along the bottom of this cabinet, and the bottom row goes 20 games back with 16 on top, and then it will move over again. So 20 back at the bottom, and then the top row, 16 on top, and then it does like that. So the bottom, 20 in alphabetical order, and then it loops back to the top for 16, and then to the right back to the bottom again, if that makes any sense at all. And again, I do that for all these, and including, ones up here, I have 281 different Nintendo 64 games out of 296. And there are some Japanese games over here as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that camera off. I'll give you one really good look at all of the boxed games, give you a kind of closer look so maybe you'll understand exactly what's going on with my loose collection down here, and then we'll look at that crazy stuff at the bottom, which again I mentioned at the beginning. So let's go. Alright, so let's go. Here we're just going to do like a quick run through all the different boxed games that I have. Again, because it was probably a little bit difficult to see from the angle that we were at before, so I figured just through this it will give everyone the complete picture of what my boxed N64 collection looks like. I have pretty much all the essentials, all the Mario stuff, and again, like I mentioned before, the Donkey Kongs, a lot of the Rareware games, and this, yeah, N64 is so much fun to collect for, and just I have so much memories of playing so many of these games as a kid, so yeah, it's just a lot of fun owning them complete in the box. And I have the glass open on one side, which means that there's kind of a glare on the other side. I guess I could, you know, open and close it and open and close it, but hopefully everyone can see everything just fine. Again, a few copies of The Legend of Zelda there, but there's a couple copies of each of the different versions. A couple extras at the end. And then moving down to the Famicom and such. We've got like Megami Tensei there, the Starfy series, and again, all the different things that I mentioned before. So moving down below that, just let me kind of back up here. Like I said, here are the kind of loose games, and just there's no real great way to organize them, unfortunately. I mean, getting a game out is kind of a pain, but I do kind of like how they're all, you know, nice and compact at the bottom of the shelf. I think it does kind of keep them, you know, somewhat organized. You can kind of just see there how far they go back. Like I said, that's 16 on the top, plus the 20 on the bottom, and that kind of just stretches all the way to the end with Japanese things on the end there, along with a few kind of random odds and ends there. And then beneath all of this, we get down to the very bottom, so the base kind of has a section for storing stuff too. And again, this is where I said there's some kind of crazy things. The Supervision is a very strange portable console that competed with the Game Boy back in the day. And you can probably see some inspiration from the Game Boy there. I do hope to have a look at that on my channel someday. So if you're curious about that, I'm sure we'll probably get to it eventually. And then over here, like I said, we have some Tiger Electronics. Anyone who's been watching my channel will know I just kind of reviewed actually those three Sonic the Hedgehog ones right there. You even have a Mega Man 2 one, and I believe there's like a Castlevania one and such in there as well. There's some pretty interesting Tiger Electronics based on some pretty prominent series, despite the fact that Tiger Electronics are unfortunately not so great. There we have that Game Wave that's kind of in a carrying case that looks like a pizza delivery case. Way back I did a review of that. And there's some other things in there as well. Like that Buzz Time is like a trivia thing you can hook up to your TV. You can actually see just barely that orange thing there. Behind the Supervision, that's a boxed TurboGrafx. Plug and play Sega Genesis. And then down here we have a boxed Game Wave. And we have some old tabletop arcade games. Now, the way you can actually tell the difference between these is if it has a red control stick, it is one of the mid-2000s re-releases, but the ones that have the white control sticks, those were actually released in the early 80s and are highly collectible. So we got Pac-Man there, we got a Q*bert one, just a whole bunch of different things. Let me switch which side the glass is on. And these are just all things that I was able to find at like thrift stores and such back in the day. Those were some very fantastic days. But yeah, so that is my World of Nintendo cabinet, and then again, you kind of even have like a Nintendo at the bottom there, and we have Tony Hawk Ride, the absolute best game in my collection by far. So with that, that is the World of Nintendo cabinet. It really requires you to, you know, get a workout, doing the squats and stuff while looking at everything, and I hope that you enjoyed that quick look at it. I just think that these cabinets are so neat, and of course, you know, it is lit from the top there, so when it's plugged in, everything looks super nice, and hopefully that look through it did it justice. Please let me know what you think down below. Please also feel free to, you know, comment what N64 games you absolutely love, what you think of N64 collecting, and what you thought of anything that we discussed in this video. So thanks again for watching, hope you enjoyed that, and hope you'll join me next time for something different. So thanks, and see you later. Thank you so much once again for checking out my videos, I really appreciate it, and if you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing as it really helps my channel out. With that said, hope to see you next time.